First race of kipco British Champions Day 2023, 12 years on from the first edition of it. We've got a massive World Pool Day to look forward to, and that first race is the Long Distance Cup. It is the longest race on the day. This is the map, the course map that they're going to have to take around the iconic Ascot racecourse. Swinging past that grandstand out into the country, back along round Swinley Bottom, and this is where it gets hot. And we will see which of the 8 will triumph. These are the 8. Brooms there, Coltrane, Kyprios, really interesting rudder, Stratum, Sweet William, Trawlerman, Trushan, this has been his race, and Maxident, who is going to be a big priced outsider, but quite an elite 8 in the main. Looking forward to this. Graham Cunningham, what a day ahead. We'll start off by talking about a horse who has made this race his own, Trushan, winning it for a third time last year.
Terrific day ahead, and not one, but 2, maybe 3 horses we need to keep a close eye on here, because Coltrane gave Trushan every bit of trouble he could handle. They fight out a tremendous duel over the last 2 furlongs. John, the battle ebbed and flowed, ebbed and flowed. In the end, it was just Trushan, but in the British European markets at the moment, Trushan's about 2 to 1. Coltrane's about 8 to 1. I put it to you, John Blance, that when they're both dead right, there's hardly a pound between these 2 horses.
There isn't much, and he was a bit unlucky in this race last year. We don't see the early scrimmaging in the race, which definitely inconvenienced Coltrane, and he was forced wide at the final bend there. And this is Trushan's gig, this race, and he's nearly beaten him, so you're right, there's not a huge amount between them. Thing is, though, last 2 Trushan runs have been absolutely top class, as good as he's ever produced after that sort of wobble in the early part of the season. So he's right back at his best at his track and distance and ground on Saturday.
Trawlerman runs really well in third. He's back on the back of a couple of wins. He's got Frank Editori on board, but he's got to be better than he was this day last year.
Well, the interesting thing that this day last year he went quite quick in the early stages, and that definitely took an effect because they went home at 97% of the average speed, so they were coming home quite slowly. He's got stall 1 on Saturday. He might be able to get out quite easily, get a fairly easy lead, and if he can, he'll probably stick around a bit better than he did last year.
Right, let's have a look at Coltrane in isolation, winning at York's Ebor meeting a couple of starts ago. Now, at this point, and we won't necessarily talk about Donny last time when he didn't give his running, of course, behind Trushan. John, you take the view that find a bad race for Coltrane and you'd be digging quite deep. He rarely runs them.
He certainly does. I was looking at his cup race record prior to his run at Doncaster, which wasn't very good. 4th, 2nd, 1st, 2nd, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 1st. So he's always there or thereabouts. Here, he didn't give Quickthorn the kind of rope he gave him 12 months ago. He was beautifully ridden by Sheen Murphy, got the job done in the end. It was a race that he really deserved to win, wasn't it, Graham?
Yeah, absolutely. And the horse he beats, left of picture, is the Gold Cup hero, Courage Mon Ami, admittedly conceding £3. 1-2-1-2 are Coltrane's Ascot form figures. You're right, Nick, he was a bit plain last time at Doncaster. It's my view that race may have come a bit quickly. 5-week break, we should see more like the real Coltrane this weekend.
Now, the real Coltrane, that will be what we want to see. The real Kyprios is what we want to see, who came to Ascot last year, Graham, won the Gold Cup. We're going to have a look at his belated return at the Curragh last time. Now, there were significant reasons for this.
Yeah, because he's had an infected joint, a pretty serious one, kept him off games all year. He was a champion stayer last year, and his final performance in a Cadran at Longshore, 20 lengths, hanging all over the track, but 20 lengths counter. John, I think we agree on this. He was entitled to lead the race, but it was a fairly workmanlike performance. The rider was at him a long way out, and he didn't have an easy one.
Yeah, I'm very divided on him. I mean, if you take his Goodwood Cup win from last year as well, he's better than Trushan, he's better than Coltrane quite comfortably.
Correct.
But on this level of form, is he? It's a question mark. He'd be better than that, but he's going to have to beat Trushan.
We'll have a look at stablemates of Trawlerman, who we've talked about. We've got Sweet William to have a look at. John, I'm going to throw this one to you. He's suddenly a bit of a new kid on the block in terms of the Cup horses. Yeah,
he was well fancied for the Ebor. He ran very well here behind Absurd. It was a pretty solid effort given the way the race was run. Obviously, he's now got to graduate up into this sort of level, and he was second behind Trushan in the Doncaster Cup. Now, the Doncaster Cup we can't see. Trushan pulled the whole way round and still managed to win. Sweet William boxed on okay to finish second, but the eye-catching performance in that race was Trushan winning despite everything. So I think he's got to up against it to beat Trushan.
Couple of Gosden runners. Trawlerman won the 2022 Ebor. Sweet William was second in the 23 renewal. I think he's going to run a pretty good race. He's still fairly unexposed, but it should revolve around Kyprios, Trushan, and maybe Coltrane.
Well, there we go. You tee it up every time. Graham, Where are we going? 1, 2, 3, 4?
I think you have to try and think outside the box from a World Pool win, place, Quinella point of view. I think Coltrane might be the underrated horse here. 2, 7, 5, 3. Coltrane on top for me, John.
Yeah, pretty similar set of numbers for me. I'm going to go with Trushan on top there to win this race for the 4th time. What a performance it'll be. And as I say, he's absolutely, he's good as he's ever been, I think, after that wind up. So he's on top for me. Kyprios in there for 2nd. Even a 90 to 95% Kyprios will still be good enough to get involved here. Coltrane in there for 3rd. And Trawlerman will be dangerous on a soft lead. So he could be the one to throw in for the wider exotics.
I'm going to take a chance on him. He was a good 3rd in this last year. He's had a totally different route in. Yes, he's got form to find, number 6 Trawlerman. But I hope he's going to be good and fresh for this. And that man, Frankie Dettori, his final rides in Britain on Saturday, he might just be off for a flyer. Best of luck, whatever you're going for. Race 2, this big World Pool Day, kipco British Champions Day 2023. It's the first Group 1. It's a sprint. It's run over 1,200 metres. Decent sized field assembled. Should be for the prize money. The status of the race as well. They'll thunder up that home straight at Ascot in front of the packed grandstand. How soft that ground will be, we will find out. That's the course map. What about the horses that are going to contend the race? Headed by Art Power, he's been there before. Kinross has certainly been there before, the defending champ. Run to Freedom chased him home last year. There's Spycatcher, Mill Streams there. Sandrine, Sense of Duty, down to the lights of the Irish runner, Ocean Quest. And Swing Along. The benchmark horse in the race, Graham, unquestionably is last year's winner. The very well-backed winner last year, Kinross.
Simple equation. If he's the same horse as last year, he'll be mighty difficult to beat. Rohan runs well on the far side. Run to Freedom runs well at a massive price. Kinross is highlighted there. And watch the way he takes command under Frankie Dettori. 6 furlongs, Ascot, deep ground, no problems whatsoever. Very simple, John. He sets the bar and he sets it at a high level.
He certainly does, yeah. And horses that have run well in this race before have a very good record coming back and doing it again. There's a whole list of them if you want to go through it. Run to Freedom will be in that category as well, staying on at 150 to 1 last year. And Vadream, the softer it gets, the better for her. She grows an extra leg on heavy ground. And I've actually got her to run very well indeed if the rain keeps falling. But Kinross has got to be in there.
Kinross had an unfortunate defeat, of course, last time over in France. Prior to that, John, clocked off for the British Summer by winning at York and winning a race that he'd won before. That was the City of York Stakes. Sandrine, who reopposes on Saturday, chased him home. Yeah, fast run 6 furlongs, all the 7 furlongs here, ideal for Kinross. It all comes alike to him. And this was on very fast ground, of course, at York at the end of the summer, and very, very different now. But this has demonstrated his versatility. He's up against Sandrine and has had the wood on her over the last few meetings as well. She's not out of the equation, though. She goes pretty well on soft ground and at this time of the year, so she's going to be in the numbers for me as well. But this was a good performance from Kinross, and if you're a Kinross fan, you'd like it very much in the context of Saturday. Yeah, right of picture, Sandrine is 4-1 down against Kinross, but she has run really well since then at Donny. Kinross has run well with no luck at Longchamp. In theory, Kinross is the better horse. In practice, I think he will be, and no one would begrudge Frankie Dettori a farewell winner. This is his best chance of the weekend. It is, yes. OK. Right, let's have a look at last month's Group 1 over at Haydock. That was the 1,200 metre Sprint Cup. There's no Kinross in the lineup. A few of these will be coming back to Ascot and having a go. Notably, Swing Along, Believing, who was 3rd, Millstream. Now, Believing and Millstream, their connections have paid big money to get them into the race. Yeah, we've got quantity here. I'm not really sure whether we've got the real top quality. Believing's highlighted, left of picture, Swing Along runs well, Millstream runs well for a long way on the far side, John. Regional is better than all of them. I'm really not sure whether we've got a potential Ascot winner this weekend in this shot. Well, no, and the problem with this race was that Shaquille was the hot favourite and completely fluffed his lines, and the second favourite, Sacred's, off the back of the telly there as well. So the 2 main form horses in the race failed to fire. This was a kind of decent set of sprinters, but they're all rated in the sort of hundreds, aren't they? So they're not necessarily top class. They've run well. They're worth their place in the lineup, but I think they'll have to go something to beat your likes of Kinross. Irish representation through Ocean Quest, who went to Ascot earlier in the year, ran well behind Shaquille. Jessica Harrington's had success on British Champions Day before. What chance, Graham? I think she's got a better chance than the market might indicate. History tells us that the best 1,200 metre horses in Britain and Ireland can beat each other on a regular basis. Have a look at the way she dominates some pretty useful fillies here in Ireland. This form's worked out quite nicely. Of course, Saturday's race is stronger, but I like her to run well. Last time out, she was drawn away from the stands rail. No good to her at the Curragh. On this form, she's a sporting winning place chance. I wouldn't completely rule her out. The problem is Swing Along's another real front runner here, and they might just lock on a little bit, these two. And the history of this race would suggest you want to be just off the back of the speed to win, but it wouldn't be a huge
John, if you look at the Commonwealth Cup, She's the same horse as Swing Along, and she's a much, much bigger price and proven on soft ground.
Good stuff. Nice race. It does shape up well with Kinross at the top of the market, understandably. Is he on the top of your list?
He is. Kinross has to be top just because we know he's that good. In behind, Ocean Quest, number 14, is a big price. 9 Sandrine and 3 Rohan, who's very well suited by Ascot. So in the sprint, 2, 14, 9 and 3 for me.
John.
I still remember Vadrine plying through the muds to win the Palace House at the start of the season. Obviously, Charlie Fellows has quoted many times she just needs soft ground. She's going to get that unless the weather forecast is terribly wrong. So I think she's a bit of value in this race, although a lot of the value came out of the market a few days ago. Kinross in there for second, Sandrine for third. And Run to Freedom, I think, can run another good race. He'll not be 150 to 1 this time, though, unfortunately.
Absolutely, that can be guaranteed. Right, it's Kinross to be king once again for me, number 2 to win the sprint. Whatever you're going for, the best of luck. Race 3, Kipco British Champions Day at Ascot this Saturday, this big World Pool Day, is for the filly and mares. It's the Group 1 filly and mares race. It's been won by some outstanding horses, not least the likes of Emily Upjohn, Wonderful Tonight, Magical and Co. This is the track and trip that they're going to have to take. And it's 2,400 metres to start just beyond the winning post before doing near enough a full lap of the course with all of its idiosyncrasies and tests. These are the runners, 14 of them. Above the curve, very consistent indeed. She travels across some island. Free Wind will be popular, one for Bobby. Go down to the likes of Time Lock, big player, Blue Stocking, Jackie O, Arouet Brossonade for France, Running Lion, and down to Sea of Roses and Sweet Memories. Now, let's have a look at the Yorkshire Oaks and get the thoughts of Graham Cunningham. This involves a few key players, of course it does. Chiefly perhaps Free Wind. Interesting to see that she's bidding to become the first older filly to win this race since a horse in the same colours, Journey, over half a decade ago.
Yeah, 8 of the 9 last winners have been 3-year-olds. I'm going for the older horses this time around. Not necessarily Free Wind on top, but this is proven Group 1 form. She comes in the white face on the outside with a strong-looking challenge. Warm Heart turns her away. She's franked the form, so I've 1 or 2 in behind. What went wrong in the arc, John? She wasn't knocked about once beaten, but she didn't show her best form, Free Wind.
No, she was probably not in the best position to get the way the race turned out. I know Ace Impact won from the back, but a lot of the other horses stuck around at the front that day. She's got a really good turn of foot on fast ground, this horse. She has got some soft ground form as well. I just think she's probably better on a faster surface.
Let's have a look at a faster surface. A couple of weeks ago at Newmarket, it was the success of Time Lock over Sweet Memories. Time Lock, to be ridden by the champion jockey William Buick for the Chance, looked a class act this day, John.
Yeah, it was a really good performance. Although the thing you have to think about this race, though, is they went really hard early, so it's probably accentuated her winning distance in the end, Time Lock. But once she got rolling, she's really gone on and scored very nicely. Sweet Memories made ground into the race when it was still going pretty quickly, so she can probably be forgiven not being quite as close to Time Lock. Thought Running Lion ran a really good race. She was in the teeth of that gallop the whole way and has boxed on nicely. First run at 12 furlongs. I've got her in the numbers to run quite well at a price, but Time Lock, if she can build the revs and there's a pace, she's going to be hitting the line really well.
I can't make a case for the second or third beating Time Lock. They thought at the start of the season she was an easy ground filly. I just think she's taken a while to find her real form, but she's there now. We have to admit that was only a Group 3 and she's in higher company this time.
Oh yes,
but
definitely.
She has a big chance, I think.
Let's go back to midsummer, the 1st July specifically, at the Curragh for the Pretty Polly Stakes. It was won by Via Sistina, who's actually going to run in our Champion Stakes a little bit later on. A couple of those who chased her home will meet again. Stay Alert was second above the curve. She turns up to all the best fillies races. She was in there as well.
Yeah, I like above the curve's chances to run well here. She's been consistent. What she lacks is a real change of gear, John, but she keeps running well, and interestingly she has cheek pieces on for the first time this weekend. Can you make a place chance for above the curve?
Not quite, but I do like her as a horse. I have done for quite some time, and she might be able to get into a good position from stall 3 with those pieces on. They're going to give it a go from the front, I would have thought, but they'll be a bit wary about maybe setting up for a horse like Time Lock from the back.
GC, who's in the 1, 2, 3, 4?
Well, first of all, I don't have a great feel for this race. I think it's wide open. 3-year-olds have held the edge, but I think the 4-year-olds and older fillies might have a big chance this time. Time Lock has really clicked of late. Number 1 above the curve, Headgear first time. Number 2, Free Wind, and number 8, Blue Stocking. But this is a complex puzzle, John.
It is a bit. I'm going to go with Time Lock, but again, I'm not desperately confident. But if there's a decent enough gallop and she can really build those revs, she's going to be staying on very well to the line. I did like Running Lion's performance, so she's interesting again at 12 furlongs if she gets to the front and doesn't have to go along at the kind of clip she did in that Newmarket race. Free Wind, I think, will still run a good race, but I've been happy about her on better ground. And Blue Stocking was third in the Ribblesdale, some pretty good 3-year-old form over middle distances for a while. Important to mention as well, they might be running this race on the inside track, which is potentially not going to be as bad ground-wise as it would have been on the outside track, depending on what the executive decide to do.
I'm going to go for a 3-year-old who is not trained in this country, hasn't appeared on either of your lists. Number 11, Rouet Boissonade, who's a bit unlucky last time. She's come into the boil. I think she's good. She's a bit of a price, and she's my idea of the winner. Best of luck, whatever you're going for. Race 4, Kipco British Champions Day. For many, this is going to be the race of the day. It is the Queen Elizabeth II Stakes. It's a Group 1, of course it is, over the straight 1,600 metres, won by some of the greats of the turf over the years. And this is the straight track that they will take. There are 11 of them, and it really is an elite race. Big horses travelling over from France as well, so it's got a lot of international appeal. There is Angel Bleu, Check and Challenge, Facteur Cheval, Big Rock, Chaldean, Epictetus, High Royal, Nashua, Paddington, Rogue Millennium, and the brilliant Irish filly Tahira. This is mouth-watering. Let's go back to Paddington. He has been one of the horses of the season and his Group 1 success in the Sussex Stakes at Goodwood.
Yeah, he had a tremendous spring and summer. I think it was 4 Group 1s in the space of 10 weeks, John. The conditions will be no problem, no matter how soft it gets. It was horrible on the Wednesday at Goodwood, but he proved too strong for Facteur Cheval. Facteur Cheval is a high-quality, consistent French raider, but Paddington was just too tough for him on the day.
He was cleverly ridden, though, by Ryan Moore. Got to the front, slowed things right down. They came home pretty quickly, relatively speaking, here in this race, and the rest didn't really have the turn of foot, giving Paddington the head start. Of course, he then went on to York and lost over the 10 furlongs against Mostadaf. It was an absolutely virtuoso performance in the saddle from Frankie Dettori that got him beaten. Back at a mile, soft ground. He's obviously going to be there or thereabouts. OK, well, let's have a look then at the day behind Mostadaf in the Juddmonte International, Graham, when Paddington rather came off the rails.
Yeah, we have to talk about Mostadaf because he's one of the highest rated horses in the world on 2 pieces of form, Royal Ascot and here. Nashua's a high quality filly. My opinion on Paddington's run here was he wasn't quite good enough. Others will differ. I thought he ran well in defeat. The old head carriage is slightly awkward. That's not unusual. Mostadaf is a high-quality horse. No disgrace in being beaten by him. Just edging left on the fastish ground. He's had a break, Paddington. That could be key to him. Yeah, and I think going back to a mile, I mean, he's a horse that could definitely be high quality over 10 furlongs, as he's proved here, or maybe even 12. But I think a mile, from what we know about him so far, is his best trip.
OK, travelling over from the same country, if he's the best of the Irish colts over the 1,600 metres, what about the best of the Irish fillies? Tahira, John, she is a class act. And it shouldn't be forgotten that her trainer Dermot Weld has got quite a special relationship with Champions Day. He's had a lot of success since its inception.
Yeah, and she's a lovely horse, no doubt about it. He has been a bit lukewarm about her chances, Dermot Weld, given the likelihood of very, very soft ground. If you go back through her form, you can find some encouraging performances on soft ground, although that soft on 1,000 guineas day at Newmarket, if you look at the times, wasn't as soft as they were necessarily saying. There was a good strong gallop in this race. She travelled like a dream and she pounced in the closing stages, and she's a proven Group 1 performer, Graham.
She is, and she's got one thing that makes her stand out, and that's zip. She has got a turn of foot. Now, this is the Matron Stakes. It's good quality fillies form. She's first time in against the boys. The trainer is making negative noises about very, very soft ground, but she does have that one weapon that Group 1 horses need. That's acceleration.
I think she's got a massive chance, personally. She is one of the star 3-year-olds. Go back to the beginning of the year, Graham, and the best race, certainly early doors for the milers, for the 3-year-olds is the 2,000 guineas. Are we forgetting Chaldean, the winner?
We could be. We could be. On this day, he was really good. It was a bizarre day, John, as you remember. It was running a monsoon. August Rodin and Little Big Bad, 2 big O'Brien fancies, bombed out badly. But he ran, and he ran hard all the way. He takes the measure of High Royal, and he's an emphatic winner on the day. After that, it was on to Ascot. Paddington jogged past him. And since then in France, he hasn't shone. But he's had the break, and Chaldean now has to show the horse that came together in the spring, because since then it hasn't been smooth sailing.
No, it obviously wouldn't be a surprise to see him run well, Chaldean, but that form has not worked out very well. No. The 2,000 guineas, you'd have to be big fans of some of the horses in behind to say it has. Softish ground will be fine for him. My problem is there's quite a lot of pace in this race, and he does like to go forward, Caldy, and he might just be drawn into an inefficient pace battle.
OK, Team Gosden doesn't run in Spiral. They do run Nashwa. Graham, I'll go to you, because the last time this filly, as we take her running third behind August Rodin in Ireland, the last time she ran at 1,600 metres, she won a Group 1 by 5 lengths.
Yeah, some people think she's better at a mile than a mile and a quarter. I don't buy that in the slightest. I just think she's a high-quality filly at 2,000 and 1,600. Here, Coolmore got the tactics absolutely perfect for August Rodin. King of Steel, more of him later, and Nashwa came from off the pace. She runs yet another belter, Nashwa. I have to think she's going to run another really good race this weekend. She should go close.
Yeah, I've sneaked her in on top of her, Paddington. I think she's going to run very well indeed. That Falmouth Stakes run that you were talking about was a very strongly run mile down a straight track. Obviously, the ground will be much softer on Saturday, but she's run well on soft ground. And that defeat behind Al Hussein that we saw also in front of the Whirlpool cameras, albeit over 10 furlongs in the Nassau, that was on soft ground. And she was just badly positioned tactically the whole way through in a race that speeded up from the front. So I think a nicely run mile here on the soft ground be fine for her. I think she'll run very, very well.
There's some wonderful depth to this. There should be, but I can't wait. We've got challengers from France, from Ireland, of course, the best of British as well in many ways. Who wins it?
We've got multiple Group 1 winners. We have multiple Classic winners. And I'm going for one who's neither of those things. It's the French raider, Big Rock, and it's a soft ground call in a way, Nick, because I think it could get very soft. He has got very high quality form on soft ground, and I think that he's going to give us a good run at a price. 4 Big Rock on top for value, 8 Nashwa, 9 Paddington, and 11 Tahira.
Yeah, Nashwa on top for me, just over Paddington. It's a pretty good queue, though, I think. I think both will run extremely well, but Nashwa will get everything run absolutely to suit, I reckon, and should be coming late to hopefully score. Angel Blur's my soft ground flyer, and here ran really well at Goodwood last time. This is his trip. It's his ground as well. I think he could go well at a decent price and could spice up your exotics. And to hear it in there for 4th, although it wouldn't be the first time Dermot Weld has been lukewarm about the ground or something for one of his horses.
Absolutely.
And then they proved to be have no problems on it whatsoever.
I hope he's just bluffing us, because I think she's just a total class act. I've been against her a couple of times this year, but I'm not on Saturday. It's Tahira for me, number 11. Race 5, Ascot on British Champions Day, is the last of the Group 1s. It is the Kipco British Champions Stakes, which has only been run at Ascot for the last 13 years, but has been illuminated by some of the very best, including Frankel, who clocked off his magnificent career in 2012 in this very race. Let's have a look at the track and trip that they have to take. 2,000 metres. We'll have an angle certainly by then as to quite how testing that ground is going to be. They'll climb, and then they'll get into rather a battle as they go up the home straight to the winning point. Right, these are the 9 declared runners. Baybridge won it last year. It's running the Arc recently. Dubai Honour, Mostardaf, My Prospero, Point Lonsdale, Via Sistina, who takes in this race instead of an engagement earlier in the card. Oritsundore for France, King of Steel and Royal Rhyme. Very good horses. They should be for a race of this status. Mostardaf is the first horse that we begin with, who's got Jim Crowley back aboard. It was form we analysed earlier, courtesy of the defeat of Paddington, but in isolation, how good was this from Mostardaf, Graham?
High class. And as you say, this form might be polished earlier on in the afternoon by Nashwa, Paddington, or both of that pair in the QE2. But there's a dilemma with a capital D here, John, because this horse is a world-class performer on top of the ground. His overall record puts a couple of little red flags up as regards testing conditions.
Absolutely, he's one of the best racehorses in the world on ratings, and he proved that in the Prince of Wales Stakes on fast ground or fastish ground here back in the summer. But some of his least convincing work has been with soft in the going description, so that's a problem for me.
But he does get his break, which is good. He needs a break, comes in fresh, so we shall see. That is Mostardaf. Let's talk about, Graham, the final mount for Frankie Dettori, King of Steel.
Yep, if he hasn't had a winner by this point in the afternoon, it'll be a nervous Frankie who goes out. King of Steel is a gorgeous-looking horse. He's a high-quality horse, and he's still a fairly lightly raced horse. He wasn't perfectly positioned in the Irish Champions Stakes. He stayed on willingly. The question is, is he quite good enough? A few excuses made along the way. He needs to produce an absolute peak performance to win this. Is he good enough, John?
Well, the soft ground's a little bit of a question mark for him as well. I mean, he's a big beast. That shouldn't really be a problem. But he produced that astonishing turn of foot to win the King Edward the 7 Stakes back at the Royal Meeting, albeit not beating great opposition, but it was really good against the clock. That ride wasn't so bad that Kevin Stott deserved the sack for it. But he was probably not quite where he should have been in that race. But yeah, we're beginning to get to the sort of excuse stage with King of Steel. He's got stall 1. He'll position up nicely under Frankie. No one would begrudge him.
Let's have a look at last year's running of this very race. It was won by Bay Bridge. It was a surprise in his defeat of My Prospero and, of course, Dubai Honour. They turn out again, Graham. But it was a surprise because the horse with the jockey in the blue and white cap, Baid, was beaten for the first time in his career. We didn't expect it.
Yeah, and the world champion had to give best here, and that's what can happen in the autumn when the ground gets testing at Ascot. But those conditions are no problem for Bay Bridge, who beat some high-quality opposition. Yes, Baid was below par, but Adea was a pretty good horse at this point. My Prospero in the yellow colours runs really well. He has a couple of bits of headgear added this time around. I thought Bay Bridge was a bit too free for his own good in the Arc last time. If he's the same horse as he was last year, he's got to be a player, John.
Yeah, I think he's the safe bet in the race. I mean, he was a little bit unlucky in the Prince of Wales Stakes as well. He stumbled out the gate, he got into the wrong position in the race and was never quite comfortable the whole way around. Excuse in the Arc, I think 6th in the Arc was fine given the way the race was run. Softish ground, he'll be fine. And I think if you want a horse that's definitely going to give you a run for your money, Bay Bridge is that.
Well, let's have a look at him winning in the UK a couple of starts ago before that run in the Arc, Graham. This was the September Stakes, down in class and onto the all-weather, but I guess there's a key element here that this was over 2,400, the Arc over 2,400, and he could just be that much better a horse over 2,000 anyway.
Yeah, he had £9 or £10 in hand of this field and won accordingly. So I think we can draw the conclusion, John, he's pretty much the same horse as 12 months ago. We have horses like Sealy and 1 or 2 others who've run in the Arc and come on and won this race. So I'm not going to hold the Arc defeat against him. I think Bay Bridge comes back as a strong place chance at least.
Yeah, I think this is definitely the right race for him, and hopefully he's in tip-top condition. That was a good number as well he ran at Kempton, albeit against moderate opposition. It was still a good run against the clock. So, yeah, he's my sort of tentative on-top selection here, but I'm happy that he's going to be a reasonable price, I think.
Yeah, Magical was one of those horses to run in the Arc and then win just a few days later, it would seem. Via Sistina, John, she's interesting, isn't she?
She certainly is. She's got a really good turn of foot on all conditions, actually. The run with Marquise de Savine last time at the Prix Jean Romelet was a really good effort from both those fillies, in fairness. And George Bowie has said that he likes the way this horse quickens up on soft ground. She's going to need that skill set here on Saturday afternoon, and we're seeing that as well in this race in Ireland that we saw earlier on, Graham.
She has got a strong turn of foot. She's got a tendency to drift right, as she showed when she hampered a couple of rivals on the inside. But that turn of foot is impressive, and it's a particularly potent weapon when the ground gets deep, and she handles testing ground really well. She could be one who sneaks right under the radar here.
Piece of form we haven't seen there. She went straight past Al Hussein on soft ground at the Dahlia Stakes at the start of the season, so that's a very good piece of form retrospectively.
The international markets in the build-up to this meeting, though, have rather centred around a horse for connections that have won this race before. French raider Oryxon Doré, horse number 7. Does he make your list?
He doesn't. I could be wrong, but he's in deeper than he's ever been before. And the deep ground might be an issue for a horse who's generally held up out the back, and this is a race with not too many front runners. So I'm going to go 6-1-8-4. I like Via Sistina. I think she might be overpriced in the World Pooled, and I suspect that my learned friend Mr. Blance agrees.
Well, if she's in the numbers, definitely Via Sistina, but I'm going to go with Bay Bridge on top. I think he's the safe bet. King of Steel's nicely drawn, should get a better position he did at Leopardstown last time out. Moster Daff, if the rain stays away, he'd be very difficult to beat, but the rain's almost certainly not going to stay away. And Via Sistina in there for 4th, and yeah, no Frenchman in there for me either, Oryxon Doré. We might be getting this totally wrong, Nick.
OK, I can see the script already. Frankie's final ride, King of Steel. There we go, there's my selection to win the Champions Stakes, horse number 8. Whatever you're going for, the best of luck. Final race, Kipco British Champions Day. Hopefully we've found you 1 or 2 winners by then. Certainly some illuminating performances. The final race is the Balmoral Handicap, the only handicap of the day, the biggest field of the day. It's run over 1,600 metres. The straight track, which is the same course and distance that we would have seen an hour or so earlier with the Queen Elizabeth II Stakes. A real thunderous cavalry charge up the home straight. These are the runners, or half of them, headed by Migration, who's going to be a big player. You would think Sonny Liston's there, Baradar's there, Bo Pedro ran well last time. Blue for You, Docklands will be popular. Under Hayley Turner for Harry Eustace. Couadour Roscollin, Ropey Guest, who very often turns up at Ascot, Dual Identity, Dancing Magic, and down to Eileen Douve. Talking of which, we can have a look at Ropey Guest. It won't be Ascot, but Ropey Guest back into the winner's enclosure. Graham Cunningham.
Yeah, Ropey Guest and Sonny Liston, both horses to keep an eye on. Ropey Guest toughs it out. Sonny Liston comes from off the pace, comes home strongly. I know he's an old favourite of yours at Ascot, John, Ropey Guest, but I've done the calculations. Yeah. I reckon he's 0 for 19 at Ascot.
I've written him down as 0 for 18, so you might be right, but he's certainly been placed many times at Ascot at big prices, but I can't have him winning. He'd run a good race. This is interesting, this race at York. They went really hard from the front the whole way, and yet the first two were almost the first two the whole way around. Sonny Liston is extremely consistent, has run really good races, including in the Royal Hunt Cup. He's a hold-up horse, which is very important in this race. It historically goes to hold-up horses, so he's going to be in the numbers for me, old Sonny.
OK, let's have a look at the big thundering cavalry charge at Newmarket a few weeks ago, the Cambridgeshire. Quite the sight that it is. And, John, we're going to bring out a couple of these. We've got, of course, Dual Identity and Bo Pedro. Bo Pedro right down the stand side where the winner was. And, in fact, this race in recent years, if you're not drawn high, you're not on the list, really, are you?
True. So both of these were somewhat advantaged by that. But Pedro's often slowly away, and he was here, but he's absolutely charged home. Dual Identity was interesting. He's often ridden quite patiently, but he was ridden a bit more upside down this time. He went towards head of affairs early, got a bit tired late. But the two, I think, have both got solid chances.
That's classic Bo Pedro. Tends to get caught flat-footed, tends to come home really strongly. He should do so again, and he's a definite place chance.
GC, let's have a look at the listed third behind Vaffortino for a while last time. Find this horse in plenty of summer handicaps and find that he went off favourite or thereabouts. He's been a popular horse this year.
Yeah, we're going to touch on the Lincoln again in a minute. I was counting my money in the Lincoln back in the spring until Migration swooped on by. A while has continued to run really well. This is a solid performance. He'll be on the front end from a good way out. I think he's drawn high, which may and may not be ideal. I like this horse, and I think he'll run well, but I suspect, as at Redcar, John, there might be one or two too quick late on.
Yeah, they went pretty hard in this race the whole way, and he made a move about sort of 2.5 furlongs out, which probably wasn't entirely efficient. And he probably ran similar sort of race in the Lincoln way back at the start of the season, but he likes the soft ground. He'll be there or thereabouts for a long way. I've got him in on a place line, but not to win.
Let's have a look at Migration. Graham's already mentioned this horse is in dispatches, courtesy of his victory over a while. I'm not sure you're going to want to talk about this horse again, or are you?
Well, this is interesting, this run last year in this race. He was slaloming around all over the place trying to get a run. He's come home really well. David Manoussier, his trainer, is on record as saying he is a mudlark.
Yep.
So not just me saying it, the trainer's saying it as well. He sluiced through the ground to win the Lincoln at the start of the year when it was really heavy, and he's going to get his ground again here today.
Migration, aptly named, because he migrated from the near side to the far side. It can be a very messy race tactically. My only knock on Migration, not that he hasn't run for a while, it's that he's considerably higher in the weights that he won the Lincoln, and the £3 claimer who rode him that day is no longer a £3 claimer. He's off a mark of 1:113. He's got to put up a tremendous weight-carrying performance to win this.
I think of all the horses in the race, it's obvious he's the top rated. I think he's the one that can, and I think getting him fresh is key. But that'll be my selection in a few moments' time. What about you?
A couple of horses we haven't mentioned. 18, Latam, hasn't had the ideal setup that he needs for a while. Big field, strong gallop, easy ground. He's been running well despite smaller fields, steady gallop. He also has cheap pieces for the first time. Latam is a price and a player. 9 Docklands, tremendous record at Ascot, won the Britannia Handicap in real handsome style. 7 Bo Pedro to come calling late, and 6 Awal. But the two key horses for me in the Balmoral, 18 and 9, Latam and Docklands.
Yeah, I like Migration. Everything is right for him in this spot. Yes, he's got a big weight to carry, but he's basically a group horse on soft ground for me, so he goes on top. Sonny Liston to pack a punch in there for second, Awal in there for third, and Docklands, a rare beast, a Britannia Stakes winner that hasn't ended up in Hong Kong yet. And of course he ran very well off a strong gallop to win that race. There's still a bit of upside to him. He'll run a good race too.
I'm going to go 1 to finish first. Migration, the top rated horse in the race, to atone for last year and come off a break and win. I think he can do it. Best of luck, whatever you're going for, in the very competitive final race of the day.